It's Keinan Briggs, athlete, coach, and mentor. We are here live with Sammy Sloan, junior at Modern Day High School. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So let's start with this conversation. You are a junior at Modern Day High School. What are your primary events and how were you introduced to track and field?
My primary events are the 100, 200, 4x1, and 4x4. And I was introduced to track and field actually my freshman year after my friends wanted me to go try out with them because they were a little too nervous to do it on their own. So I went out there and I just fell in love during tryouts.
Now, what about the experience just made it something that you would fall in love with?
I think it was the fact that everyone kind of thought it was a personal and you're doing it yourself sport. But once you really got into it, you realized it's more of a family sport and it really is a team sport because you guys all bond so well together. Even if you guys are competing by yourselves, it's just there's so much support and camaraderie involved with everyone there that it was just kind of it just played over from my other sport that I used to play. And it just made me realize that, wow, like even though, yes, I am training to do this one thing by myself potentially, I know that everyone's always going to be there working with me, for me, and we all just work together.
What was one of your biggest successes so far in your track and field life?
My biggest success would have to be my freshman year. I got thrown in. I had no idea what I was doing because I was completely new to the sport. And somehow I managed to make my way up through the ranks and I made it to the varsity 4x1 team. And I ran with them at Arcadia and we got second place. And that was a big deal. And then I got put as the alternate for them. And we went all the way to Masters and I got a CIF ring with them. And I just thought that was probably the coolest thing that has ever happened to me because I have a CIF ring and most people are like, okay, you didn't get that as a freshman. I'm like, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's just so cool to me.
Now, how do you explain what the relay is to non-track and field athletes?
Well, the way I explain it was so I have to first explain them how the whole track works, how the straights are 100, the curve is 100, and then with the 4x1, I have to explain that each of us get that own 100 to ourselves. And we have to pass the baton to each other, and we try to do it as quickly as possible, but there's a certain zone within that we have to pass it to them. And if we don't get it within that zone, we get disqualified.
Yeah. It seems like every athlete is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know? So talk about your experiences with competing at Arcadia and then all of a sudden being alternate. Was it something that you mentally were able just to kind of cope with, or was it a challenge being the alternate? How does that work?
It was a little bit of a challenge because I knew that no matter how hard I trained, and even if I was still training with them when the rest of the team wasn't training anymore, I wasn't necessarily going to be competing, which was a little hard to think about. But then I realized that not many people got the opportunity to even be the alternate. So I kind of realized that this is going to be something that I'm going to have to work towards if I want to actually be on that relay without being the alternate. And that's kind of how I got through it because Arcadia was such a big deal. Like there's so many people there that I've never seen before and there was so much competition. And I just thought that, okay, if I can run here, I know I can push myself harder to eventually one day be on this relay for sure and not just be the alternate.
And so on the flip side, what was one of your biggest failures so far? Something that you're working towards as of right now?
Right now, I think I'm working more on my mental abilities towards track because I tend to kind of psych myself out when I'm doing things. And then I get in my own head and I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then as soon as your mind thinks that, your body automatically responds to that.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to I'm trying to toughen my mind so my body can get tougher because I want to work and I want to be able to push through this. And sometimes I just feel like, okay, no, like I don't, sometimes my brain just doesn't want to do it. And then
Mhm.
my body just shuts down behind it. And I'm trying to keep my gateway open for that because I really just want to keep going so I can get better because the harder I work, the easier it's going to get.
Yeah. So I guess give an example of how your mind and maybe falter of your mind can affect your body and what comes from it.
So earlier in the year, I actually popped my hip flexor and I thought, okay, this is going to be the end of my season. So I just kind of thought that I wasn't going to have a season. And I think my brain kind of just got used to that fact. And I was like, okay, so what's the point of trying to work harder if I'm not going to be able to run anyway? And so I think that really just got to me because I got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to be able to run track. This is going to be the end of it and I'm not going to have any more. But then all the coaches put in the work with me. They all helped me get through it. And I realized that, okay, if I really do put in the work, like I can get past this. And I did get part of my season before it got canceled. So that was
Yeah.
definitely a big thing to me.
Come on. Let's go. 5 more. 5, 6, 3 more. Come on.
Every rep counts. Train stronger, recover faster with Compex Muscle Stim.
Well, we all deal with injuries, aches and pains. Like obviously coming from soccer, you'll have, even a torn hamstring and still be able to play at 50% or a severely rolled ankle and still be able to play. How does that work with track and field? Are you able to be at 50% and still do well? How did you cope with that?
Well, with track, it's a little harder to be at 50% and still be doing well because everyone else is working at 100%. So you really do feel like you are behind because the more time you take off, you lose all of those weeks of training that everyone else got. So you kind of just get thrown back in and you're like, okay, wow, like everyone else has procured all of this talent and work and drive while you kind of were just trying to get back to your 100%. But I feel like if you do work at that 50% for a long period of time, working 50, 60, 70, you will get back up to that 100% to be able to compete with everyone else at 100%.
I agree with that because it just takes time to get to that point. So explain the value of taking care of your body prior to any type of injury.
Well, for me, I constantly stretch before practice, after practice, because you really want to stretch it all out because then you can pull something and you want to stop that before it even happens. So that's why you have to prepare yourself. Like for me, stay warm, drink a bunch of water, like stop any injury or injury related thing before it even has the chance to happen. So then you don't have to worry about it when it does happen or if it does.
Okay, so talking about, the mental side of it and how you're keeping yourself in this place of good, what are you doing strategically to keep your mind in this place of, I'm going to continue training, I'm going to develop it stronger, I'm an alternate, but I know that I'm going to get to this next level where I'm going to be one of the main contributors to the team. How do you manage that?
I think for me is I do a lot of journaling personally. So I write down a lot of the things I feel, but then I also go back because I did realize on YouTube, there's a lot of the videos of all of us running throughout the years. And I watch those and I'll watch little things that I do and I'll watch what the other runners do. And I kind of try to pinpoint the things that I do that other people don't. So I can focus on those little things because the little things all build up to big things. So the more I work on my little rotations or the way I start, like those little things can have those big differences. And I realize that if I can work on those little things, I can get to big places.
Very true. So right now, what's your typical training program and how are you staying motivated during this specific time?
So our usual training program is our coach sent us a little list of things that we're supposed to do. So we'll run like 5 100s with like hands up, knees up. So we stay tall while we're running so we can focus on the functions and the way that our body's like supposed to run and feel during that. Or we'll have to do high knees or A skips and B skips for the warm-ups. And I think that I focus a lot on that. And I'm able to do that at a park that's near us. So I'm able to still get out and do my things so I can still work on my work ethic and make sure that everything's going well while we're still doing this during this time.
How are you managing your schedule when it comes to your social life, when it comes to your schoolwork, your training? Do you have like a set schedule or are you kind of just going by ear? What are you doing?
So for school, my days actually are kind of weird because today I have 2 classes and then tomorrow I have 4 because I usually would have 3, but with no lifting, I only have 2.
Mm.
So these are the days where I'm able to get up a little bit later and finish my school stuff between 9:30 and 11:30. So I tend to do all my school stuff and then I'll go on a run and then I'll do my warm-ups and then my drills and then the workout our coach gave us. And then I come home and I tend to take a shower, eat, then do my homework. And I'm finished around 6 o'clock by then. And I'll just take that time and talk to my friends after that. And then I'll just group FaceTimes. And then it's kind of like nothing ever happened except just without all the actual in-person social interactions.
Yeah. So give, I guess, the freshman year you a motivational talk about how to get to where you're going to be your senior year.
Well, I think the one thing that I would always want to tell someone, especially me, freshman year, is that no matter how hard it seems or it's going to get, that you're always going to be able to push yourself further and really put yourself in someone else's position, because you see so many people go through so many things during these times. Like you'll see pulled quads, pulled hamstrings, you see it all. And you just think that, okay, this could be me, but it's not, because you're constantly working and you're constantly making sure that this doesn't happen to you. And as long as you keep that work ethic and that work mentality in your brain, you will be able to succeed no matter how small the little victory, even if it's 3rd place, but hey, you're doing varsity and you just got thrown in there. And some of these girls have been doing track for their whole lives. And you've only been doing it for what, 3+ years, not even that. And you are competing with these people and you're doing good. And you just got to keep your head held high and just really keep yourself happy, because as long as you're happy and you're happy with what you're doing, you're working towards your goal, and that's what really matters.
Yeah, I think that's really good. It's really helpful for those athletes in that same situation. So I want to go back for a second and talk about your journaling. So when you journal, you write your emotions and feelings that you felt today. Is that what you're journaling about?
It's kind of how I felt today, or something that kind of dawned on me that day that I felt in the past, kind of that just I was able to process at that point that I hadn't really thought about before.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me really realize, because I'll go back and read something that I wrote a few days earlier and I'll read it that day, and I'll come back at it with a whole new light, and it just really gives me a whole new insight on what I was feeling and how I'm able to like approach those situations differently.
Mm. And how has that helped when you do this basically self-reflection? How has it helped you moving forward with things off the track and on the track?
Well, with off the track, I kind of have like a hard time like interacting with people I don't really know that well, because I'm not exactly someone who's out of the box social. Like I'm very comfortable with the people I have. And so I think that's kind of made me realize that like there's a whole new world of other people out there that I haven't explored yet. Like I haven't been friends with and I haven't talked to them. And I think that the more open I am to becoming friends with more people, the more opportunities I get and the more experiences I'm going to get in life, because so many different people have so many different things to offer, just like track too, because there's so many people who have been experienced but aren't very social on the team. And so you kind of just see them as that kid who never talks. But if you really get to know them, they have so many deeper hidden meanings behind them. And it really creates like your second family type of feel there.
Yeah, it really does. And so when it comes to the journaling, where'd that come from? Is it something you just thought of, or did you see that somewhere? Where'd it come from?
Well, as a little kid, I actually had to go to therapy because I had this mental block that was so big that I just couldn't get around it. And so I had to like go and talk it out. And they were like, okay, well, if this continues to happen, like try writing it out, because I couldn't always be with the therapist. So I had to really just put in the mental mindness and just start writing things down so I could get it all out. And so I could read it and really realize that this is nothing more than just a few words on a paper. And if I can get around that, then I'm going to be able to continue with my life and get further and just compete and work on and get far, far in life.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I'm going to keep probing if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the journaling, it's when you self-reflect, where are you getting the understanding from?
I think the answer is kind of coming from my subconscious, because when I'm like rereading things, my subconscious tends to speak to me more than it does usually when I'm first writing it down, because I'm so involved in what's happening right then and there that I don't really process it well, and I don't have that time to just think it and realize that, okay, wow, like this is the real meaning behind it, but this is what I thought in the first place. So coming back to it kind of with like a clean mindset, like after I've slept, I've gotten a good night's sleep, I maybe have read a little bit of my book, and I just come back to it with like a whole new mindset of, okay, this is a whole new day, like new day, new way to look at things. Like you're just coming to it with a clear eye, and it just kind of makes different things pop out that didn't the first time.
Mm. And typically, how many days do you give yourself? Is it just one night's sleep, or do some situations take more time?
Some situations do. I tend to give it 2.5 days usually. So I have a few days to just really process everything, or just like completely forget about it and then come back to it like a complete different way, because it just kind of gives me like a whole new outlook on the way things went. And I think that's just like something that I've needed personally, but I've also noticed that it's just kind of something that's good to look at in life in general, is just see how things went so you can maybe change the way you look at your future. So you can really just have a brighter outlook in general.
Yeah. And I guess one of the last questions is, are you using this for maybe mostly negative experiences, or are they a mixture of both positive and areas you could improve?
I definitely have positive and negative experiences in there. I tend to have more negative than positive, but somehow my brain tends to turn those negative experiences into positive experiences. So because I don't really think anything's a negative experience. It's just something bad that happened to you, but you learn from it, which I think is a positive. So kind of every negative does have a positive to it.
Now, has there ever been a time where you done this process of the journaling and you're reflecting and you're finding solutions for all these emotions, right? And you keep hitting the same type of negative thing? How do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, that has actually happened to me quite a bit. I think the thing that I deal with, and the way I kind of just get through it, is I'm gonna keep hitting this block as long as I make it a block. And if that's going to be my block, then I'm going to use that block as a motivation to keep pushing myself further. So one day I can get over this and get around it. So I can look back at it and be like, okay, I got past that. So now what's next?
So what has made you this strong? You know, I'm a believer of the strongest people are the ones who have dealt with the most, so they can speak from that wisdom. What have you experienced on and off the track that has gotten you to this level of confidence?
I think it was between 8th grade and freshman year. It was kind of funny because I went from having so many friends in middle school to having maybe 3 or 4 in high school. And that kind of just like put me at the whole, wow, like this is a whole new world, because I went to a private middle school. So there were 60 people in my grade.
Oh, wow.
Where I jumped to 500 in my grade alone. So that was a big thing. And I kind of really just spent so much time with those people that I was just like, okay, so where can we go from here? Because we all played different sports. So we all started branching out, hanging out with our teams. And it was when I started playing soccer that I met so many different people. And then like mid soccer year, I had a falling out with one of what I thought was one of my closest friends on the team. And I kind of just felt like I was in this isolated place where I wasn't really sure what to do. And then I tried out for track with one of my friends, and I met all of these wonderful people. And I just really realized that, okay, bad things are going to happen, but at the same time, maybe these bad things are happening so I can get led to a good thing.
Well, very, very good conversation. I can tell that you have so many layers to your personality and character. And I'm excited to obviously get back in the track season, watching you run, and just seeing you motivate your other teammates around you. So great conversation. And if you have anything that you would like to say to those that are out there watching, go ahead and speak up now.
Just keep pushing and make sure that you keep your head held high and you just keep shooting for your goals no matter what happens to you, because you will get there eventually if you work hard enough for it.
Great, wise words. All right, Sammy, I will be talking to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.